Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to HitScan. In this video we're going to be talking about the recent State of the Agents article that came out literally just now. It goes over more information with the Yoru and Viper changes, but it also goes over some pretty big fundamental changes when it comes to agent balance going forwards. So we're going to go over all of that in this video and also include a couple of other bits and pieces that I'm excited to share. So basically I did an interview with Max Grossman, or Kane, who is the main developer behind the gameplay, the agents, the balance of the game. Basically has taken on Morello's old job, and so he sat down with me to talk a little bit about this more in detail. There is going to be a full interview going out later in the week, maybe the start of next week, but considering we're talking about these changes and how they approach agent balance, I figured it makes sense to kind of include the right clips in this video, so we'll do that at the end. Before we go on to the changes, I actually think it's super important to talk about the Viper and Yoru stuff first. Viper especially, because her growth, I suppose, over the last couple of months is one of the main reasons why it feels that this is all changing, because the state of Viper has been clearly super frustrating for the devs and they want to try something differently. But what they've said about Viper this time around is that they've taken quite a few explorations on Viper over the past few months. After many iterations, we've decided on a direction that should sharpen the ways in which she is uniquely powerful without, I'm going to say this slowly, homogenizing her with other controllers, and in other ways push her thematic fantasy. Her Poison Cloud is unique to her zonal control gameplay and thematic, but it feels that it lacks the impact we want on her base abilities round after round. Amping up that damage threat is our main goal, this time at least. We believe that part of what sets Viper apart is that she makes big bets with her map control. She picks a location, gets set, and dares opponents to take fight into the world. With that in mind, patch 2.06 changes are aimed at increasing the threat to a new level. Internally, these changes have been very strong. We're excited to see how Viper performs with this buff out of the wild. The team also feels that we're well positioned to tune her as needed moving forward. I think that this has almost been a last chance saloon for Viper a little bit. And the reason why I say that is because Astra's come into the game. And actually, if we look at day one of Europe VCT as the open qualifiers have been going on at the moment, Astra's pick rate isn't too bad. I mean, Omen's has dropped a little bit from 70% to about 60%. Astra's gone up to about 20% roughly, but Brimstone and Viper are also still being used. In fact, Viper's pick rate went up even before these changes have gone in, so this is going to have a huge boost, and we're now probably going to see Viper contest the other two main ones, Astra and Omen, when it comes to pick rate. It's going to be a really interesting time, and it's a really good time to do this too, because Astra's come into the game. Pro teams and players are still working her out, seeing how good she is, so if you add a buffed Viper into the list, it's already an experimental period, I suppose, for a lot of teams. Why not play more Viper, see if she's useful on maps other than, I guess, Icebox is the only real one that she's been played on consistently. I guess Bind as well, but not to the same extent. But you get my point. This is a great time to kind of go balls to the wall with these Viper changes, and that's the approach to balance that they're going with. Before we touch on that though, Yoru. First update to Yoru in 2.03 was mainly aimed at quality of life improvements, but this time around we're hoping to move the needle with his power and overall impact. We think the updates to Gate Crash unlock numerous new play patterns for Yoru and should allow him to apply more of the pressure and mind games he promised at launch. We're excited to see how this pairs with the buff of Blindside and the added ability to escape bad situations during his ultimate with a little proactive setup. Given Yoru's unique space in the game, we're going to keep a close eye on him and learn how the balance levers he provides affect his impact in the live game. And this is straightforward stuff. I really don't think Yoru's much of a problem child at the moment. He's just come into the game a little bit underhanded, but this is the part of the video that's important. And the reason why I wanted to start with Viper first is the devs said it themselves. It's taken months for them to get Viper into a good position, and really a lot of the buffs that she's been having over the past couple of weeks at least have been small, minor stuff. They really haven't hit the game with a super hard patch recently in regards to multiple agent changes or high impact changes like we saw with Viper and Yoru. That is about to change. This is what the devs say about it. Valorant is now 9 months post-launch. Oh my god, it's been 9 months. I know, it's been crazy. In that span, we've learned a lot of the impact of our approach to agent balance. Our previous method was to make small targeted changes to agents in hope that we've seen incremental impact. This approach has not panned out as we hoped. Starting with 2.06, we're taking a more aggressive approach with our updates so that we see a larger impact to agents with each one. This is because we know seeing your agent in the patch notes over and over can be frustrating, especially when they do not move the needle, so to speak. As much as we want to get agent updates out, we also highly value stability in the esports scene and don't want the entire game meta to shift under our pros' feet, leading into events like Masters and Champions. With Masters 1 behind us, you're good to see us try out a few things. Viper is up first, then as Master 2 approaches, we'll evaluate the changes and stabilize versus making larger changes as we feel is necessary. Throughout 2021, you should see this pattern. Once a large tournament concludes, we'll release some high impact buffs/nerfs, and as the next one approaches, slow down and focus on stabilization. So basically, the devs are kind of done with putting small micro buffs, micro nerfs throughout a lot of these patches. I mean, maybe they'll change up stuff as they go along, like in 2 weeks or 4 weeks time, we might see another little bit of a buff to Viper or a bit of a nerf to Killjoy or whatever. I think a good example of these changes is actually the Killjoy buff that we got in this patch, where she can pick up a Nana Swarm in the buy phase. That doesn't really change her impact, it's just a quality of life thing that, to be honest, probably should have been in the game a little bit earlier, right? So this is now the basic cadence of what's going to happen. But I think the main thing is this doesn't mean that we're going to get a big patch after an event and then whilst the esports scene is ongoing, we're not going to get any agent changes. I don't think that's necessarily the case, and this is where I wanted to go into the Arcane interview and highlight some of the questions that he answered on this topic. Like I said, this isn't going to be the full interview. You can check out the full thing probably at the weekend/early next week, but these are the questions to do with the topic, so let's have a listen to what Max said about all of the stuff in regards to balance changes going forwards. I guess to begin with then, introductions are always nice just to know exactly who people should be shouting at, I suppose, when it comes to game balance. What is it that you do and what, I guess, are you in charge of?
Yeah, I'm Max Grossman. I'm the co-lead game designer on VALORANT. I'm in charge of, most of the gameplay. In general, like I tend to be solely responsible or ultimately responsible for game balance and just kind of the organization of the design team. We have a big team of designers here that are actually working on these changes and trying to find the right things for us to be doing, but I'm kind of accountable for all that work.
I guess with Viper and what you're saying about potentially her stonks into the future are only going to get better and better, is that a bit of a concern considering you've buffed her 12 times in a row as well, that there's going to get to a point where it's oh god, Viper is incredibly strong right now, sure. Nobody saw this coming? Always
a concern of ours. Fortunately, I think of the game as being pretty fluid. The state of balance is always shifting. Every time we release a new agent, new map, make a change here, make a change there, it shifts the overall paradigm. We're never balancing for like an ideal, perfect state of the game. We're balancing for the game that exists today, right? So if we end up in a world where Viper is incredibly powerful on these maps and has this insane win rate, we'll probably look at doing something in the future. But it's very much about, balance is an active thing in our minds. It's not there's no such thing as perfect balance. There's just balanced enough for right now is kind of my approach. And it's, it's about seeing how the community thinks, about looking at the data that we have about certain things and trying to react to that and figure out how much is too much. Is it time to make a change? Is it, just something that we let players continue to figure out? And that's always like the delicate balance that we're trying to find, no pun intended.
I guess then going forwards, you spoke about balance and stuff in the State of the Game article. Now that you've taken a pass at Viper and Yoru, who were obviously and very clearly put by Riot, the main agents that you're looking at to buff and stuff, what's the stance from you guys now? Like, are you still looking to do changes on big patches in the next 2 weeks, that patch that's coming up, or do you feel like this is another time to sort of sit back, see where everything lands, and then go again?
It's probably more the second one. It's not so much wait and see so much as it is we have stuff that we're currently cooking on, but it's not really ready for prime time. I think broadly speaking, after watching Masters, we learned a bunch, and we want to be pretty thoughtful with how we approach changes. I think that Masters was really the first time that we see these teams participate at like really the highest level. They've put in a ton of practice, ton of time, and we see some of the different strats that these teams are running and how that looks. I think one of the really important things, one of the really fun things about esports is watching teams evolve, tournament over tournament without just completely shifting up everything under their feet. How do they deal with the, an NA, the aggression that some of these teams are showing with characters like Jett and Raze, and how do teams evolve to meet that challenge? Do they just have to go toe to toe in the same style? Is there a different style that would prevail against something like that more effectively? I think that, now that they've had a big tournament with that type of play, what do we see as a result? Or in Korea where we saw a lot of the like Jett breach combos. What is that? What do you do against that? Is there some iterations that we'll see out of these teams over that time? So I'm very excited to see that. I think that with all that in mind, we are looking at a couple of characters and a couple of other changes, kind of speculatively. I think that without going into too many details, we're looking at kind of that balance of initiators and duelists and kind of how they sit in the game. Not anything super specific on them, but just, I think that they're the most interesting, I guess, or, the biggest, probably the biggest delta between regions right now is the prevalence of initiators and duelists and the different comps and how the teams run. So that's kind of where our lens is, but I don't think there's anything more specific there.
One question that we usually ask, and it's always fun, like we did it to Morello as well, like the sleepless nights question. What, I guess, going forward in the game has got your attention the most that you really want to keep an eye on that it doesn't stray? Because I feel like, again, that would be Astra, because she's coming into the game with so much like positive feedback. Everybody seems to like her. She's so impactful in various areas. I guess there's always that concern that she comes in and she has like a 90% pick rate, which I don't think would happen because Omen is also so good in the opposite area. I feel Astra is a lot more conservative and setting up her utility, whereas Omen's a little bit more on the fly, throughout the paranoia, go, go, go. Is Astra the concern to you at the moment?
Astra is not really the concern for me, to be honest. I think largely because it feels like even if Astra ends up being very, very potent and very strong, the way that, and maybe teams prove me wrong with this, but the way that she's powerful feels like in line with how I think we always imagined the game to play, where it's very much about being very thoughtful and having these kind of, big strategies that you're able to actually like pull off. And sometimes those strategies are just, really small plays like taking control of a main or something. Sometimes it's a huge site execute, whatever it is. I feel like Astra is this big playbook machine. So even if she ends up being very strong, I think it'll be in that type of a way, as opposed to an agent like Jett or Raze, where like they're very strong in the like, I could kind of just create chaos and use my insane aim to like kind of just beat people. Which is, that's always the fine balance that we're trying to strike, right? Is how do you make a game that that rewards this type of really thoughtful play and these great moments of teamwork and strategy, but balance it with the individual playmaking ability of an agent like Jett and Raze, and like how do you make those things play together to create like a fun, interesting game. And so I feel like if Astra ends up being strong, it'll be in a way that feels close to what we want it to be doing, as opposed to like, I think one of the risks that our game has always had is, you have these agents that can do a lot. And so it actually can diminish the value of like positioning and gunplay. And so we're always towing that line, right? Like we're always like, right. I remember actually before I even joined the team, when I was interviewing, actually Morello said this to me. He said, we're trying to make a game where we're trying to shoot a sniper shot through an eye of a needle. We're like, like if you have an ability that's just like 2 inches too strong, your character is like totally like out of whack and totally busted and completely violates what the game is about. But then if you have a character that's just like slightly too weak and is doing something too wrong, your character doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just a gun game then. It's like, okay, well, there's like this perfect middle spot where we're trying to hit. And so, that's kind of the thing that we're always thinking about, is how do we actually thread the needle there?
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Some really interesting stuff when it comes to Viper, Yoru, and also agent balance changes going into the future. Let me know what you think. Do you like the fact that we're going to be getting consistently massive updates after big events, just to almost experiment? and the fact that the devs are getting a little more aggressive with their changes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of all of that, whether you're concerned, whether you're excited, and I'll see you in the next one. Hope you like the new camera, by the way. I'm super in love with it. But thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.